Burgess and Boltons weekly wrap-up.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, Jeremy. Happy New Year and happy Friday.
Happy New Year to you too. I've got a little Happy New Year thingy.
Nice.
Yeah, there we go. 2024. I know we're like a couple of weeks in, but you can still say it. We haven't seen each other, have we? So there we are.
No, we haven't.
Very good. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with the London market, technology, change, innovation, and this week, as well as the news, we're going to kind of focus a little bit on Tintec London market, which is coming up in a couple of weeks' time, and also a bit about the post office, as well as mergers and acquisitions. We've got a lot to talk about. So let's kick off, Ben. I've got a couple of videos that kind of just kind of set the context for the year. Look at this one. This is a glitchy 2024, which kind of
like it.
Yeah, I know. Kind of just says it's quite exciting, but we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
and it could be quite scary as well.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that in a minute. And then they got this one. Look, it's going to be about data 2024. It's going to be all about data. I'm positive about that.
Yeah.
And pink. You notice I did that?
Cute is the new thing, isn't it? Cute things.
Yeah. Like your glasses.
Pink. That's my glasses. That's the latest trend. I have actually got an array of glasses that will appear on this show over the next few weeks.
Glasses watch?
Yeah, glasses watch. There's going to be quite a few different pairs. So, yeah, watch this space between my ears.
Good. Let's do the news. So we got lots of news because we've got a few weeks to catch up on, but this one caught your eye, which is pretty recent, with that Howden and the partnership with the British and Irish Lions. And yeah, you spotted this, didn't you, Ben?
Yeah, well, it's hard not to. It's they're obviously raising up their advertising and their marketing, following their brand relaunch. Exactly the right thing to do. They're also advertising. I noticed yesterday I was on the bank station. So a lot going on at Howden. Obviously, the announcement of Farrell as the head coach was a big deal in the news generally. So they've actually done quite well out of this, I think, as well, because obviously Fortune is a bit, it's been a good story, a positive story around Farrell largely, I think. So yeah, so there's old David Howden. I mean, he's a tall guy, David. So Farrell must be pretty big. And there they are, somewhere near the Gherkin on top of a roof.
Yeah, indeed. Rugby's not my sport.
I mean, they're advertising and doing sponsorship at the same time, which is a big spend. And he said that business is on fire and it's all going, it's all exciting, but he doesn't sleep at night.
Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing what they're doing. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was just going to say the same thing. Advertising, sponsorship, big money, especially such a high profile tournament. I was going to say it's not my sport, but I certainly know about it. So that's big news. So yeah, we'll watch that, won't we?
Yeah. Well, we're monitoring it. We're monitoring not spends, but certainly advertising. Kind of awareness, the impact and things. So yeah, interesting to see how that does.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a lot of time for Howden. Certainly a company that has got a core purpose, and it's not just vacuous. It's very good. A lot of people there, so that's great. Okay, let's go. Okay, so this is interesting. Kind of, we're going to talk about insurer and broker mergers a bit later, but this one came out, which is Thomson Reuters buys World Business Media, which runs the insurer TV. Correct me if I'm wrong. So this is pretty big news in our world, especially mine, because consolidation in media doesn't happen that often, actually. But this is a big move by Thomson Reuters, I'd suggest, and it's going to be interesting what they do with it. And I assume, and you're a bit closer to this than me, Ben, but they're looking for. They obviously see that the London market and journalism and reach in terms of distribution is going to be a key growth area, and hence the acquisition, I guess, into America.
I mean, they're a publisher and the insurer, which we'll all know, I guess, in this market, declare an interest. They are a media partner in Insurindex, but for me, I don't know much more about the deal other than what I've read. It's interesting because Thomson Reuters is so huge, and its interest is will be to get into this market, into the insurance market, the commercial insurance market more generally. It's typically been in law and capital financial markets, really, not particularly in insurance. So big name, big backing now for this, and it would be very interesting to see what they and the insurer do together. I think it's good, to be honest, for the industry. I think it means we're much less marginal, I think, in press and media terms than we were, I guess, before this. So yeah, it's good. And usually these deals are private capital, private equity, venture capital things, which are, not very exciting in a way. They're financial things. This is much more of a play into developing, I think, what WBM has already done very well and been successful. So yeah, very interesting. Really, I suppose positive, I'd have to say.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it is positive. Anything that kind of shines a bigger spotlight on our corner of the global economy is good. And like you said, they're a major outfit. So
they are a major outfit. Yeah, and I noticed as well, I haven't monitored, I think there's a lot more coverage now in the FT than there was, for example. So
yeah,
and some of that has been to do with rate rises and things, but I do think insurance is getting more media presence, generally speaking, and I think that does perhaps help a bit with understanding of what's going on.
Yeah. Good. Yes, that's a bit of interesting news there. So I think it was this week or last week, Ben, Bieber announced its manifesto for 2024, and I think you were there at what I called the wedding of the year so far.
It was the wedding venue at the Houses of Parliament. No, it's a parliamentary launch. There's me with one of the young broker representatives, looking happy with my apple juice. I hesitate to add. There is the minister, Bim Foley, if I get his name right. He looks about 17, but he is generally the deputy minister at the Treasury. And there's Graham Trudgill, who's the new CEO of Bieber. So they launched what they do every year as a manifesto. Manifesto covers a load of different areas, but they're basically talking about risk in relation to growth and economic security for the UK. And just to say, we are in it too. Growth Church is in it. So we do a service study in partnership with Bieber. It's still an independent survey, but we have been making great strides with that. And it's been so good that they've put it in as given its own place in the manifesto, which is to push for excellent service in the industry. And there's a couple of pages in there, and also some mentions around stuff we're doing on technology as well. So yes, it's good, and that has had a lot of publicity. The minister was very positive about about Bieber and what they've been doing. They've had a lot of stuff going on around fair value and cladding issues relating to insurance, and they've done an excellent job really in terms of partly fending off the government's dismay at some of the practices, I suppose, that they felt were wrong in the market, but that's good. So I think it's been a positive year for BEBA and the brokers in general. So they seem to have got to the end of the year in this manifesto in particular with a good relationship with government and so on. So, but of course, who knows whether those ministers and MPs will be there next year?
Yeah, of course. Big year on the political front globally, isn't it? It's not just the UK.
Yeah.
It's a huge year. We'll have to see how all that plays out and the implications for the insurance markets. But yeah, coming back to BEBA, I think I also saw it everywhere on LinkedIn. So they're doing a great job of not just launching it, but promoting it to a wider audience, which is great. And I was thinking, it's just really positive to have that kind of manifesto in place that is looking at service and trying to improve everything around it.
It is good. I mean, Craig Tracy, who's the MP there, he's the Insurance Financial Services chair on all parliamentary groups. So they were very positive about BEBA and what insurance is doing and its place in the economy. And they're talking now about closer working with the FCA on the regulatory objectives and the regulatory approach. So I think they are going to be heavy on, I think, proportional regulation and things for the industry. So it isn't just coming out of London that these, because I think the London Market Group and Libra are doing some good work as well, which we ought to at some point comment on. But it's good actually. I think, and good for the industry, I think, generally speaking. So I don't imagine that even with a change of government, it will change. Although poor old Craig Tracy said it might be that there might be a sign in that I was featured on P45 of the document. Which I thought was a good joke, actually. At his own expense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
clearly.
Good.
Clearly they're all kind of knowing there's going to be a changing of the guard or feeling that.
It's quite interesting when you meet these politicians or ministers or whatever it is in the flesh when they haven't got a camera on them that's recording every second. They're usually quite. They're pretty.
Well, I mean, this was a public thing, so they are on quite. Even Bim Mafalami, the minister, is quite gung-ho, I would say, to some extent in his speech. He was very personable and quite funny, and not your classic politician. No, I mean they're quasi-public events. Yeah, but
interesting.
Yeah,
interesting. Right, we'll keep an eye on that and the other associations as well as we go through 2024. Okay, so interesting news. So towards the end of last year, we covered the movement of various people around the market. Rob Powell was one of them. And it now seems that his move to WTW, which, as I say, we talked about last year, is no longer going ahead, which is pretty interesting. That's quite a non-move, isn't it?
It's surprising. I mean, obviously, don't know the reasons. Probably never will. But interesting that it was a very public move and a big deal for someone to go from the biggest broker, head of claims, to what is the third biggest broker, and I think it presaged probably rumours and talk about what WTW's strategy is, where they're going to go, whether they're going to reinsurance again, etc., etc., etc. So it was, when we talked about it, we felt it was a big move, a changing again of the guard at the top of a lot of these, organisations, because there's a new person at Aon, and therefore there would be a new person at Marsh. But this one move, of course, kind of sets that back to where it was, or resets it really. So Rob being top at Marsh now, so that isn't as much change as we thought. So WTW must be looking for someone new, of course. So it's all it is all, as you say, interesting. What it all means, who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, indeed. It's interesting because there are always generally kind of quite a lot of movements around this time of year, either side of Christmas, people reassess and perhaps get another job and move around. But it's not that common that people move and then decide against it.
No, I think that is unusual. I mean, it's highly unusual, particularly given that he'd been out of Marsh effectively, I think, for 2 or 3 months as well. So it is I don't know. It's a sign of perhaps which we referred to last time, what's going on at the leadership levels in these organisations, in that there is a lot of positioning going on and competition and a real kind of battle for talent. We've seen the Howden, pay out $100 million for the reinsurance for the Guy Carp thing, and then poaching things. So there is a lot going on in that space, which is it's at times quite brutal, but it's also clear that everybody is just trying to get the right set of people to lead them out for the next 5+ years. Yeah,
definitely. Right, we'll keep an eye on that.
They'd offer me a job. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be lovely. Would we still be able to do the show, do you think?
Oh, no, I want one, and then I'm going to turn them down and go back to Grace Church.
Oh, right, yeah. Of course.
That's what I'd do. Yeah.
Do you think Grace Church would have you back?
Probably not, but I'm just saying, that's the risk I take.
Yeah. Living on the edge, as you always are.
Exactly.
Yeah. You and your rock climbing. Anyway, let's move on. So let's play this.
What's the word on the data stream?
Well, the word on the data stream is the kind of news that happened over Christmas, isn't it? It's the Aon buying NFP in a pretty big deal for the industry.
Yeah, big one. Mid-market player for the US, but big deal, 13.4 billion. Doesn't quite get them to become number one. Gives them just under 9% from just under 7.8 to 8.8% share of the global market. So after the failed WTW deal, I think various commentators, including particularly I think Mark Gagan, have been talking about the fact that Aon needs to build and grow, can't do it organically, so it will be doing it through acquisition. And this was a pretty big one to start with, 13 billion. I think there are others potentially in the pipeline, but it's sign of consolidation, really. And I think we're going to be keeping a watch on all this, aren't we? The merger watch.
Do you like that? That is a first use of clip art in 15 years.
It's basic for sure. That is basic, but it has a certain crude appeal.
I knew you'd love it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Merger watch. Yeah, looks like those what are those characters in that cartoon? Eyes like that, ninjas. Anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
So there have been a number of deals I think that are kind of picked up next year. This was by far the biggest one, and I think it was the early 23 first half have been low on mergers, obviously globally, but insurance as well, InsurTech. So because of the economic situation, there had been after 2022, which was a big year for deals, 410 deals, I think, or 9 deals in 22. First half of 23 was a real drop off and expected to rise. So I haven't got the latest stats, but we will get them at some point as to what it looks like. I expect it's too early yet in Jan, but for sure in insurance anyway, this deal of 15 billion would have put it into the territory of it being quite a big year for a big second half of 23 for M&A. And I think it presages more to come. Aside from M&A, so we had Gallagher's bought Cadence, I think, in another broker in 23 for 900, just under $1 billion. Zurich bought a business which I can't remember what they're called, but they're another broker Oh no, they bought 3 brokers, right? And they were all not that well known, but 3. But that amounted to nearly $750 million. Brookfield bought the Argo Group for just over $1 billion. Travelers just bought Corvus, a cyber play, for 435 mil. So when you start to add these up, and then next year we've got the Aspen IPO presumably going forward for, I think that's a $4 billion IPO apparently. So that's pretty big, and that's going to happen in New York now, they're saying. So there's quite a lot going on, and I've heard rumours about other deals that might happen. So I think it's going to be quite a big year for M&A. So I think the that pathetic little logo you've done for our slot is good.
Yeah, I suppose you could call it pathetic.
No, it's got a crude appeal, as I said, and it might just need a bit of a gifting up.
Yeah, bit of animation.
That's it.
We'll see what we can do with that. But the production values on the show.
You know what I'm saying on that. Gif it up.
Yeah, gif it up. Just give it up, mate. Give it up. Good. Well, anyway, we will keep an eye on those mergers, and it's a trend that actually before Christmas, I think you said that it will pick up in the new year, and it all through 2024 will be.
Leave off one, which is the RSA NIG as well, which is also happening and happened and will be happening this year. So again, you've got that, and there's been various things going in the UK market of books of business moving around. So we've got talent moving, we've got M&A, we've got IPOs, we've got a hell of a lot of activity going on there in terms of what you might broadly call market consolidation of some kind or other. Yeah,
definitely. Certainly shifts in the dynamic, and also we're going to come on and talk about kind of technology and change now. But that also plays into it as well. So let's move things forward from the dodgy eyes logo and talk about TinTech London Market. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks' time. It's going to be a great event. We nearly sold all the tickets, which is amazing. So thanks for everyone who's coming along. I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. What I thought I'd do was share the results of the pre-event survey. So we ask the audience kind of what they would like to get out of the event and what their top challenges are. And I just basically pull the research together. It's quite a weighty doc. It's got a lot of responses, over 150. But what I thought I'd do was really quickly just pull out kind of 5 themes that have you can see quite clearly from the research kind of what it's pointing towards in terms of the topics and themes. This is what we'll try and cover during the sessions. But certainly data quality and data management were kind of top of the list, and I think there's 2 kind of ways that you can look at this, either through kind of an industry wide lens, and you can see on their blueprint 2 and kind of market modernization as the 3rd bullet point. So you can see how the core data record and kind of standardization on a market level is one aspect, but I also think you can look at it internally within individual organizations and their data architecture and data structure and how they're trying to leverage value out of that data estate, especially as we go into a world that I predicted which would be much more driven by data and automation and AI. You will need to be able to access that data in order to drive those more sophisticated analytics and models within your organization. So that's a key area of concern and challenge, I think, for the audience at the event. And then I've already touched on AI and automation. Just looking down here, how will AI impact the industry, its potential benefits and foreseeable challenges? That is I speak to a lot of people in the tech and ops space, and that is certainly an area that is hot at the moment, making sure that they kind of know what the opportunities are, but then are able to respond and leverage kind of the data, as I've already talked about, in order to harness those those capabilities as well. Blueprint 2, we're going to talk about this in a kind of wider context in a moment in terms of industry-wide tech change. But it is what's clear from the research, or the survey rather, is that there's still quite a lot of people who do not have the knowledge yet about how it's going to impact their organization and what they need to do to be ready for phase 1 particularly, which is July. Phase 2 has been pushed back, but there is still quite a bit of uncertainty around what they need to do, and I'm sure we'll be addressing that. We've got Velnetic and Lloyd's coming along to TinTech to talk about those timelines and what needs to be done. So that will be interesting to hear what they've got to say. I think then you've got the final two: digital transformation and modernization, and market connectivity and standardization, which kind of links back to the first bullet point. I think the rise of AI, and I've said this before, over the last 12 months has really kind of given us another gear shift in terms of digital transformation. So we saw this over or during or after the pandemic, that there was a mindset change in the art of the possible and what can be achieved with digital within London market organizations. And I think that has taken another step change in kind of mindset, but also urgency, as I think organizations realize that we are going to be much more data led. We are going to be not relying on machines, but those who have machines within the loop will be able to make better, quicker decisions and be able to compete and deliver better service, and allow people to do better, more creative roles, get away from the drudgery as we always talk about. So I think it's really interesting how that is kind of changing, and I think it's looking at kind of that innovation and driving forward whilst also trying to look at the legacy systems that you are kind of starting from. How do you either move away from them, or how do you get into a state where you can keep kind of the lights on, but also have that innovative space in order to leverage the new technologies and ways of working as well. So I think it's going to be a really interesting event, and we will dive into all these in a lot more detail. And I'll put the executive summary up as well on LinkedIn next week, and I'll put it as a link in these posts because they're quite interesting. And I'll try and write some more up around that. But just to tie it in to something else that happened over Christmas, which was the post office drama and the impact that that's had politically over the last couple of weeks or so, which is based on an IT industry-wide technology that basically failed and had implications. And I think, Ben, you want to kind of pick up between perhaps some of the synergies with kind of that and the Blueprint 2.
Yeah, so I think there's clearly a lot of stuff that we know about how people were badly treated, potential conspiracies, cover-ups and everything else. But I think the sweatshirt there, justice for post office victims, I think you need to think carefully with all of these transformations that happen. In the end, you've got to deliver, and you don't want to get into the situation that you get into here, where you've got kind of horrendous stories of people's lives being ruined. But don't underestimate the negative parts of technology. So I think there's a duty in that, and I've taken, actually, just to source it, I've taken quite a lot from a program on Radio 4, actually, which happened before the drama. It was out well before the drama, I think.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Which is very good, and we both recommend it, wouldn't we? So
yeah,
it's called The Great Post Office Trial, and it really works through all the different aspects of this. And I would say that anybody who's working through cultural change or transformation or IT implementation, I think, ought to listen to that program, because there are I know it's always said as a cliche, lessons learned, but for sure there are lessons there. So I mean, I think there are maybe 3 or 4 lessons that I've taken from one particular show, which is about the IT system itself. I've not brought in the whole bit about the cover-up or the alleged cover-up and conspiracy and so on, because that's kind of still got to run. But what I think, and I don't think that always happens, but certainly the early stages of this, there were signs that this was not going to work. So the first thing is, I think, is to make sure that the system actually works and is fit for purpose early on. That seemed to me to be one of the problems with this, is that right from the off, this system didn't work. Consultants went in and said, "Look, it's terrible." I think one of the consultants they brought in said, "Whoever wrote this code has clearly no understanding of mathematics or the basic rules of code programming." So this system was not working properly at all from the beginning. Now, we know all systems have teething problems, but there must be thresholds and there must be points at which you go, this is just a disaster. So it was for a long time known to be a bit of a disaster and not going to work. So this was not unclear to people, but it started to gradually get sort of obfuscated. I think the other thing that comes through to me about this is about transparency. None of this process was transparent between suppliers and vendors in this program, and even with government. So that's partly why the inquiry hasn't got as far as it perhaps wants to, with uncovering what the hell went wrong with this. But first and foremost, one of the good examples was that the post office itself had no access to what they called the black box of the Horizon system. So they were never able to see anything. And I've seen this in certainly in IT programs before, where the buyer just has to say, well, we need this to work like this, and vendor goes away and says, well, we'll make that work, but doesn't share some of the basics. And I think right through this whole thing, people who've been in the business with experience could tell this was not working, and that was never picked up properly, and reports were shelved and so on. And I think the final one was really about bail if you have to at some point. And there was a point at Horizon where I think Gordon Brown had said to Tony Blair, we ought to get out of this. It's going to be a disaster. Not dissimilar in the sense to HS2, I think, which Sunak took the decision to get out because it wasn't going to be fit for purpose and it was going to cost too much money. Those are the reasons they gave. So I would say that those are all kind of my takeaways from what it's saying, and they are big lessons and things we can perhaps discuss at the TinTech actually with people, see what they think about all of this and how we're doing on BP2 and stuff on that front. But also, the other thing is that there was a huge pressure to do this system, this Horizon system. It was all about modernisation, exactly the same pressures in a way that we have in the London market. And I think you've got to create some kind of ability to stand back and say, are we simply doing all this and pushing on and doubling down on this because we've got all those pressures, and forgetting actually the system's not working, it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So I think there are some big lessons just from the IT transformation side of this, actually.
Yeah, I was and I agree with all those points. And speaking to people who are running IT products, especially within AI, and how I think, and I was saying this to you, Ben, actually. So we've been through kind of a couple of kind of step change in technology, which has kind of changed our working and on our lives. And we can talk about the .com boom in the 90s and 2000s, and then the mobile kind of revolution with the iPhone, and then what that meant for how we browse the internet and buy stuff and everything else that's come after it. And if we are at another step change in terms of AI, then I think what is good, and the lessons that you've pointed out, I think for individual organizations, is there are a bunch of leaders who have been through step changes in IT who probably be cautious about making similar mistakes that were made in those two other periods of the .com and the move to mobile, and will try and couch everything they do in terms of business outcomes and improving customer service and having real tangible benefits to not just to shareholders but to users and everything else within the organization. So that's a positive. However, you can always get kind of carried away, and you get so far down a road that so much money has been invested that it's so difficult to pull out and turn around and rethink, especially when the landscape is shifting underneath you all the time and the new technologies coming along. And we talked about this. Nobody knows how these technologies are going to impact us in the future. So it's very, very difficult to kind of plan and say, okay, this is where we need to be in 5 years' time. So I just think it's a really fascinating time for individual organizations that are looking to transform their technology and operations to be ready for whatever the new world looks like, but also the way that the industry-wide initiatives as well are developing. And I think there's a problem with speed, but I hopefully by July they will have the fundamentals in place that will allow them then to take the next steps, and they might be not the next steps that we know about now, but over time, at least that digital place will, those digital standards will be in place. I was going to just share, before I let you come back in, the LinkedIn post that I saw, which kind of summarized nicely, and I think it was only yesterday. Oh, no, it was last week. Sorry. The hidden dangers of upgrading technology, and basically it comes up with 10 points, and I'll put this in the chat after today's show. But essentially, they're all kind of the things that you talk about, but are quite, once stuff starts to go wrong, you feel like you're on the wrong path. It's, as I say, it's very difficult to turn around. But there's a few here, learning how to say no. Not all requests need to happen. Making sure that you totally understand what you were trying to do and not letting in kind of project creep, and ensuring that all the changes you make, you've got those users on board. They realize how it's going to impact customers and just make life better. And there's just a really good 10-point kind of guide, I suppose, just to keep you on track. What
I think about this as well is that there's something that strikes me here that's about the kind of ethics of how these programs are run and technologies used. And it isn't just about the ethics of the final implementation. I think we all feel, increasingly in this world that often the technology takes precedence over human beings. And I think that's, often for cost reasons as well as, but it's also for control. And I think one of the things we've got to be really, really careful about is that the computer doesn't kind of take over here. And I think that the computer company, the IT companies are extensions of this often, and they've got to look at their own behaviors and their own ethics here. And I think the post office story and other transformations that have gone badly wrong, there is a common theme of that the computer has to be right. The coding has to be the right way because that's the only solution. But that's, when you stand back from that, it's patently ridiculous that digitalization or computing or software is the answer to everything, because it obviously isn't, and well, that's sometimes what the illusion is, that we create in these situations. And I think in London, we've got to be very careful. We'll talk about something next week about impacts of technology and claims teams. But one of the things that still comes out very strongly is experienced people in the market who say, look, we often, it seems to us that we're going too far too fast with this, and we're losing the really, really crucial aspects of people and judgment and experience. And it seems like a basic point, but it's really important. But it was the same thing that happened to the post office people. They basically said your experience counts for nothing, and we don't even believe you. And yet historically, the post office had built these people into being representatives of the brand and highly trusted people in the community. So it wasn't just about some individuals who didn't understand the computing system and so on and so forth. It was really, they were trashing their whole purpose and why they were there in the first place. So just for an IT system. So I think we've got to be extremely careful. And I think you and I have talked about this at points, which is the the point at which you think that the technologists have lost the plot a bit in the way they talk. They become kind of all kind of consuming, thinking like they're sort of people who are masters of the universe. I was going to say, sometimes they sound like that, don't they? But they're at that point, you've got to worry. So I think we've got to look to the leadership, the good people in those technology companies who have their feet on the ground, know the pros and cons of technology, and manage expectations, for all the people, which that article kind of says, be tough, be straight, don't literally listen to everything, do make sure the technology does what it's supposed to do, and don't stray. So very, very interesting. And I think this, the whole post office drama and the way it's touched a nerve will mean that more questions and things will be asked in companies and organizations around tech and transformation and what we're doing, which is a good thing, I suppose. Yeah,
I do as well. It was an interesting point in the drama where it became clear. Obviously, the drama is focused on those sub-postmasters and their plight, but actually, if you kind of focused on why the organization and those employees were making those decisions that were terrible, it's because they were trying to maintain the reputation of the post office as the most trusted brand. So they didn't want this stuff to get out, because otherwise that would damage their reputation, blah, blah, blah. And that was their sense of purpose. And that was misguided too. So it doesn't have to be, it isn't all tech. It's about the culture and leadership of the organization and the people we've got within it. As we always talk about, these are not subjects that you can talk in isolation. They happen in the real world with real people.
Yeah, they do. And I was just going to say that I think what we miss here and what they miss in these arguments is that exactly, you're right, is the contradiction of trying to protect the brand while absolutely destroying it through this intense focus really on the mathematical, the scientific nature of computing that could save us all and modernize our industry and everything will be fine. It totally subsumed the idea that actually the post office in essence is organic. It's about people. It's about the service they deliver at the counters. It's about community. It was about, you can't think of an organization that's more about community than the post office. And it went against all of its values, I think, but further than that, into this kind of this computer will save us from everything, and I think that is a total delusion, and a very dangerous delusion. And and I think that's one of the things, particularly with AI, we have to also sort of look at, that we don't start just simply because we stamp it on every business and every single thing that we do. We don't believe it's actually any good. Question it.
Yeah. So good themes there. Good talk. And we'll pick it up at FinTech Line Market, and I'm sure we'll get some interesting responses from everyone in the audience. Okay, good stuff, Ben. Next week we're going to talk about claims, a bit more about technology, and we'll preview our kind of interview shows, won't we? Programs, let's do that. So as well as the news. Good, excellent. What are you doing this weekend? Anything good?
I'm going to go climbing. I'm into climbing, as you know, so I'm going to do a bit of that, and then a bit of walking. It's cold now, but it's going to rain, isn't it?
Yeah, typical weekend. My daughter's going skiing with school, so I'm going to take her to a dry slope in Chatham.
Nice.
which is as glamorous as it sounds, Ben.
Apologies to Chatham, but yes, it isn't glamorous.
So I'll be doing that in the rain, which will be fun, and we will be back next week with more of the same. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. We will see you next week, and have a nice weekend.
Have a great weekend. Bye.